Well, in some cities, including here in Vancouver, listeners of some beloved radio stations woke up to a bleak message this morning. Repeats and recordings were aired on 6 Rogers-owned stations, and it soon became clear those stations had been suddenly taken off the air. They include news radio and sports talk stations, and it's left staff and a lot of listeners wondering what exactly has happened. CBC's Benit Breach is looking into this for us. Benit?
Yeah, you perhaps turned on the radio and thought something is off here, and CBC News has confirmed that there are 230 layoffs that are happening, and 80 of those are to do with radio, majority of others to do with more corporate roles such as sales and marketing. And when it comes to those markets that are affected, it's in Vancouver, it's Calgary, it's Halifax, it's Kitchener. And I just want to take a moment to show you those specific stations as well. So when it comes to Vancouver, we know it's News 1130, which has been a long-time hub for news here in the Sportsnet shows as well, where many fans have relied on listening to games for the Vancouver Canucks, the Calgary Flames, and again, more of those radio shows in Halifax, Kitchener, and Calgary. And now today we had a moment to connect with one of the employees at News 1130 here as he was heading out of that building, just digesting the news, and take a listen to what he had to say.
Shock, honestly. As of right now, I've only known for about an hour, and I'm still not entirely sure how to process the news. There is that old radio adage that you're not anyone until you've been fired, and I have been let go a couple of times, either through personally or through a station being shut down like what just happened. But being that this is so new, I'm not sure how to react just yet.
And he said that, there were hundreds of calls that they would receive and how deeply upsetting this is. We also heard from Rogers today, who said that this was a difficult but necessary decision that they had to make, especially after doing a review across their radio stations in Canada as well.
When I'm in the car, I tend to listen to Sirius XM stations, which is part of the problem for radio. But at the top of my list, as you go through the menu, I have CBC Radio and I have News 1130 because it's been a staple in this market for a long, long time. So why is Rogers shutting down all these stations? Well,
Rogers is saying that it's to do with a decline in audience and revenue trends over time. And so some perspective for our viewers today, they provided numbers from October and May of this year. And they said that when it comes to their Vancouver sports station, it had about 2,100 average listeners. Compare that to Calgary, that's about 1,200 average listeners. And we also had a moment to speak to a journalism prof today, just asking him, well, what do you make of this overall? And here's what he had to say.
What Rogers is doing is recognizing that they cannot make the same amount of money doing what they did before. So they're trying to do it in the cheapest way possible. And I think that's a danger for all media organizations.
Now, this comes after a big announcement just yesterday from Rogers saying they're the sole owner of now Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. That's the parent company of the Toronto Maple Leafs as well, among other many Toronto teams. So that's kind of the aftermath that we're dealing with a lot of employees and viewers.
Yeah, okay. Benit, thank you very much. So is radio dying in Canada, replaced by podcasts and streaming music? Our next guest says no, and he has bought radio stations from Rogers and Bell and says they're thriving. John Pohl is the president of the Ontario-based My Broadcasting Corporation. He joins us from Renfrew in the Ottawa Valley. And John, what's your reaction to these closures by Rogers?
Well, as a fan of radio, it breaks my heart. As a fan of great broadcasters, obviously it's disheartening. But as a guy who owns and operates radio stations, I can understand what Rogers is up to. I think it's certainly a business move that they're looking to the future, and those stations didn't fit into their future plans. And the reality is Rogers Sports and Media have a lot of cool things that they sell every single day, from sports franchises to digital to HGTV and TV stations, that maybe these AM stations just didn't fit into their long-term plans.
So your company bought some stations recently that Bell didn't feel they were viable. And so let's look at one example, the station you got in Kingston, Ontario. What's happened since your company took that over?
Well, we're just a little bit less than a year of running that, and we've more than doubled the revenue, which is significant. We have added news people to our team, traffic and weather. We've just basically gone back to the basis of running good radio stations, increased the size of the sales team, and the results, not only in audience surveys, but more importantly, when you actually go out and talk to people, whether they be listeners or business owners, has been nothing but positive.
So here's the thing that might puzzle some of the people who are watching now. You know, Bell looked at that Kingston station and said, we can't make a go of it. You come in, you say you double the revenues, you actually put people in a newsroom. They were doing their news coverage from afar, from Ottawa, I think. Is part of the problem here that big cable companies like Rogers and Bell may not be the right fit to run radio stations?
Yeah, I think it's a different game. Some of the products that they sell on a daily basis take a little less, I don't know if skill's the right word, but they're easier sells. You know, getting cell phones in malls is an easier thing to sell than getting someone to buy radio advertising, because it takes a little bit of teaching and learning from the customers. And radio is a mix of journalism, entertainment, show business, marketing, sales. It's actually a big job to run it well and to run it right. And I think as big companies got bigger, they just have other products that they just make money from faster and easier that maybe require, you know, a little less talent on the ground. And that's easier to run.
So here in Vancouver, we had learned if we wanted news and weather on the ones as we were driving around or doing whatever else, we could turn on News 1130. Not anymore. So here's the big question. Do you think that a company or a person can come into a city like Vancouver and successfully run an all news or an all sports station?
I would love to say the answer is yes. The challenge is those are very expensive formats to run. AM itself is very expensive to run. You get big hydro bills. And probably Rogers has been a very good steward of those stations for decades. There's no doubt that the land that the towers sit on is probably worth more than they could ever make just doing it as a radio station. So these are probably very high-level business decisions. That being said, do I think that there's a hybrid someone could do on FM where they could offer, you know, music and more news content and better traffic and succeed? I think 100% there is an opening in that market for an audience that if you look through social media, I spent a few moments, there was a lot of love for all of those brands. People are very upset. So there's an opportunity for someone to step in. I would do it on the FM band and provide that service and repatriate those listeners.
Less than 30 seconds, John. I know you know how to watch the clock. Is radio dying in Canada?
I've seen no evidence that in my company. We started in 2004. We've grown every year. We were on Canada's fastest growing business list for 10 years. All of our stats, streaming, social media analytics, surveys, listener surveys, numerous surveys, sales. I don't have any evidence that says it's dying. That being said, I am told by many that we are outliers. And I would suggest that maybe our company is outliers just because we have a team of people that go and do the work every single day in the markets, and we try and make a difference in every market we serve every single day. We just don't spin records. So I think if you're doing it right, it's a great business, great margins, make lots of money. I think if you try and do it on the cheap, good luck. There's lots of other places you can listen to music. Taylor Swift doesn't sing any better on my station than she does anyone else's. And if that's all you got, you can hear her a million places.
John Pohl is the president of My Broadcasting Corporation. Always great talking radio with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.